You're tired of working day in and day out, trying to find new boomer customers, chasing leads, doing whatever work comes your way, and never getting to earn what you're worth. You do it because you love the work and you're passionate about serving the boomers. We get it. What you need is more of the right boomer customers for your business and more income for you and your family so you can grow your company and help more people in your community. Well, you're in the right place because this is Booming Your Bottom Line.
Hello and welcome to episode 51 of Booming Your Bottom Line and a brand new Owner's Chat with Anthony Cirillo, President of FastForward. Anthony helps organizations craft experiences and seize opportunities in the mature marketplace. He helps family caregivers thrive and individuals make educated aging decisions. A consultant and professional speaker, Anthony is a monthly contributor to the Charlotte Today program. He's the About.com expert in senior care, an executive board member of CCAL, and a member of the Dementia Action Alliance. In his home community, he participates in Huntersville Cares, a dementia-friendly community initiative, and is a board member of the Lake Norman Family Health Clinic. A fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives with a master's from the University of Pennsylvania, Anthony's clients have ranged from the Cleveland Clinic, Unisys, King Faisal Hospital in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, to Carolinas Healthcare, Novant Health, Wall Street startups, and many more. Anthony, we are so thankful that you agreed to join us today. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's a real pleasure and privilege to talk with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So good to see you again. I know, last time I maybe saw your face live was over a steak in Chicago.
Chicago, absolutely. Yeah, and we were both presenting, but at different conferences.
Yeah, that was ironic and, serendipitous timing. So thanks for taking the time with us today. We talked about this before we went on live. Our goal here today is to have you just share so our listeners can hear you tell your story, how you got started in business, give them some insights and background. We want small business owners across the U.S. that are serving boomers and their families and caregivers to be inspired, learn from you as we chat here today, and so that they can be encouraged in their pursuit of that small business dream to help boomers and their families in these years and decades ahead. So if you're ready, Anthony, let's dive right in with my first question.
Sure.
All right. So let's just do the 50,000 foot level first. Why don't you describe your business? What is it that you do and what are your main services or products?
Absolutely, and you kind of hit on it with the introduction. And frankly, guys, I'm a work in progress. I am continually evolving and changing. And I think if there is a lesson for business owners, is probably that one. That what I am today is not what I was 6 months ago, and where I started, which I think we'll talk about as well. But currently, I am a hybrid. I have morphed into what I used to do in my hospital and still do in my hospital side of my life, consulting business around strategic marketing and patient experience and in long-term care, into this other focus that I have that's a parallel vertical track around seniors and aging issues that got me involved in the About.com. But it all started when I went into nursing homes and assisted living, believe it or not, and started singing because I was a professional musician in Philadelphia, in nightclubs and bands, and played in casinos in Atlantic City. And when I got out of all that, it was like, okay, what are you going to do with your talent that God's given you? And so went into a nursing home one day, and that started this whole parallel track. So right now, my value is I kind of connect the dots in the healthcare space for people to show them, on the hospital side, there's a whole set of issues that hospitals are grappling with in terms of mandates and patient experience and care moving out of the hospitals. There's a whole set of issues that are happening on the long-term care side of things with, nursing homes becoming like hospitals and assisted living becoming like nursing homes. And then there's the whole voice of the caregiver and the patient. So I basically say I connect the dots amongst all this. And so I do that through writing. I do that through speaking. I do that through consulting, and have really taken kind of a leadership and thought leadership on many issues across the years, and have in a position to kind of influence people. And so I'm more at the 50,000 foot level, connecting dots and helping people to see visionary ideas and help them live a quality life as they age. And it's really a societal issue that we're dealing with, not necessarily a healthcare issue.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. And that's pretty awesome. I mean, the amount of insight that you've been able to garner for yourself over the years, and then be able to share that with these other organizations and businesses. It's very, very needed. So where did the idea come from? I mean, what inspired it, and how long have you been in business?
Sure. Well, I've been in, I came down to the Carolinas, so I'm from Philadelphia, moved to New York for a couple of years, and in 2001 we came down to the Carolinas, and I started my consulting business. And at that point, I really was just a guy who was a strategic marketing guy who did that role in hospitals and then helped launch a company in New York called Touchstone Health, which still exists, that worked with seniors in the boroughs of New York. And so came down here and started my consulting around strategic marketing. And through that, I was saying, well, and again, small business lesson, is that if I was going to make a name for myself, I was going to have to get out there in some way. And writing and then speaking, and actually the writing directly led to speaking engagements because people were looking at my point of view and saying, he's got something to say. Now, it's not always a direct fit that a writer can be a good speaker, but it happens because of my performance background that I am an effective speaker, but that's something that's evolved over time and many, many lessons. And so one of the articles I wrote early on was, and I was looking at word of mouth marketing in a different way. And I came to the no-duh conclusion that word of mouth is nothing more than people talking about experiences they have. And at that point, I wrote an article for health leaders called the Chief Experience Officer. And I suggested to hospitals that they have a Chief Experience Officer, a role that didn't exist, a title that didn't exist. I happened to be able to go to Dubai and speak at a conference of all places, and I met the Chief Marketing Officer for the Cleveland Clinic. Long story short, my article wound up on the CEO's desk, and he used part of it as an impetus to start an Office of Patient Experience. So you see how I jumped now from being a marketing expert in healthcare to now being a patient experience and marketing expert. And so that was kind of one parallel track. And that second track was, again, this total continuing involvement. Started out singing in nursing homes, then self-published a book about what you can learn about aging from seniors and living a quality life even in places we associate with death. And then had products like CDs and activity guides for nursing homes. And then that led to the About.com gig, and then this national involvement in the Dementia Action Alliance and things like that. And then to kind of a media expert thing. So it's been a constant evolution, and there's more on the horizon. That it's all about how do you take all the things that you have and synthesize it into something new that wasn't there before. Because I can tell you now, even though the patient experience movement is new in healthcare, it's matured enough that there's a lot of people in the space. And so it's like, okay, and there's tons of healthcare marketing consultants out there. And so what I've done, and I'm just in the process of relaunching my company to call it the Aging Experience, instead of looking at the patient experience in hospitals or the resident experience in assisted living, I said, let me own something else. And again, I call it the Aging Experience, and there's certain nuances about how I'm approaching the market that way. So again, it's been a kind of a transformation, an evolvement, a growing. It started in 2001 when we moved here, and until I would ever, quote, retire, I don't think it'll ever be what it is today. It'll be something else in a year.
Right. Well, before we get to the next question, Aaron, I just want to make a comment about that. And I'm actually glad that you talk about this evolution, because one of the things that we counsel the small business owners that we work with is that, they've got to get out in front of their community. They've got to not only be seen as an authority for, what concerns their business and their customers, but they also have to be seen as the expert. And both of those are positions of leadership. So, what you're going through, this continual transformation that you're talking about, is essentially what we're telling our small business owners to do, is to get out there, share their knowledge, create their own niche and their own platform at a local level to get them out in front of more of their preferred customers and the people that can refer their preferred customers to them.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the power of LinkedIn's amazing. And I had somebody contact me. He was one of my first level connections, but really haven't had a lot of interaction. And he wanted me to mentor him. And on the surface, it looked like he could probably mentor me. But, during our first conversation, he basically said he sought me out because, you are an aging expert, right? And I kind of chuckled to myself. I said, I guess I am. I mean, I don't know. It's sort of evolving that way, and I am positioning myself that way, but I'm certainly not a clinical aging expert.
Right.
I'm not a clinician or a geriatrician, gerontologist, whatever, but I certainly can inform lots of different sides of the conversation, again, connecting the dots, but that's part of the unique value.
Yeah, well, and you actually lead right into the next question, Anthony. And I'm going to argue you are not a work in progress. You are an asset in progress because
Agreed.
Clearly, I mean, you bring a ton to the table from so many different angles. And I think that's going to answer this question, which is what is your unique sales position? You just said, I mean, there's plenty of hospital marketing folks and branding companies. And, how do you set yourself apart? What makes people seek you out? And you started right into that a second ago.
Yeah, I mean, in my little pithy, when I do a workshop on self-branding. I've actually done this at the American College of Healthcare Executives for students. And I basically say, when you look at my whole evolution of my brand, and I actually detail everything I just talked about, I detail on two columns of a slide and how to connect it. And I basically conclude at the end of the day that I help CEOs connect the dots to start healthcare movements. And, and it's the truth. There's documented evidence that I was one of the founding fathers. I hate to be a founding father of anything at this age, but of the patient experience movement. And, I've come to own that more because sometimes yeah, right. You started the patient experience more. I mean, I certainly didn't do it by myself, but there were other people who were involved. But if there was no chief experience officer at the Cleveland Clinic, the very first one in the world to have this in a healthcare setting, all the other things that happened after that would not have followed. They would not have a patient experience conference. They wouldn't have a patient experience, group and all these types of things. And it happened because the CEO said, we need to do something, because while we were clinically well known at the Cleveland Clinic, we were also well known for our lack of customer experience and actually providing bad experience, even though we were providing a good clinical outcome.
I actually worked in a hospital system for about 4.5 years, so I have witnessed that firsthand, and I can understand what they were going through at that point in time, because that's a really big deal, especially with all the Press Ganey stuff and everything. I mean, that's so important.
Oh yeah.
So that was a great explanation and some really good stuff. So with that said, what are you doing differently to help you reach, connect, and engage with your customers? And specifically, before you answer the question, specifically, since we're talking to small businesses that are working with older consumers, highlight anything that might be particularly interesting for them.
Sure. And I think it's a synthesis, again, of all the things I do that together provide the value, as opposed to just one or all. And again, I'm in a different position. So while I do a lot of work on behalf of caregivers, I don't necessarily make my money from family caregivers. I make my money from the people who want to reach those people. So it could be healthcare organizations, hospitals, or long-term care. I also get a lot of interest from healthcare companies who then want to, related companies who have a product or service, who want to then go into these other, and sell into these industries. So certainly my consulting and my influence, built by lots of writing and thought leadership and national exposure and social media. Mm-hmm. And certainly I've become a de facto social media expert. I have a Clout score of like 63 in aging and caregiving. And again, that was all organic. I started learning it. I'm almost obnoxiously consistent about it. But I think that everything I do, I try to provide value. So anything I tweet on any given day is about helping people in general lead a quality life as they age. I call it educated aging, that people need to prepare for aging sooner in life through their physical health and how they take care of it when they're younger. It's going to impact what happens when they're older. Their financial health, because if you don't save for aging, you're going to get blindsided. Mm-hmm. And your emotional health, what can you learn from elders about living a quality life as you age? And I have a whole keynote. I call it presumptuously the meaning of life. And I gave it to the Alzheimer's Association this year about here are the things we can learn about aging, from continuing to have purpose and value of social networks, the importance of gratitude. And so I'm continually evolving this message. And so there's speaking, certainly, and there's writing, and there's consulting. But I have an interesting set of products also that I'm bringing to the market. Somewhat, some of them are music related, some others not. So just if we look at my product set, from a physical standpoint, I certainly have a book that I self-published. I have CDs and activity guides for activity professionals in nursing homes. But from a music standpoint, I've also started doing live streaming concerts over the internet from my studio. So I've upped the bandwidth out of my home studio, and I'm able to actually reach a population of assisted living or nursing homes on a group level, but I can also customize concerts for individuals. So if a caregiver, grandchild, son or daughter want to give something to mom or dad, this is a great way to look at, how can Anthony could do this custom concert for you, and we'll have a conversation with mom or dad. We'll do a song list that, either you choose or a genre of music that you choose. And so I'm doing things like that. I just published it's called a 30-day video caregiving series. And it's through a company called Avenue.com. If people look them up, it's essentially a group of leaders and speakers out there. And every day you get your daily dose of inspiration about caregiving and changing it from what I call burden to opportunity and changing it from surviving to thriving. And so a lot of it's about taking care of your own health. And so every day you get a 2-minute video from me. You're listening to a message from me, and I also use song in it. And there's a story, there's a moral, and there's a takeaway every day for 30 days to help you, especially if you start your day as a caregiver, to get centered, and so you don't get, totally caught up and stressed by it. And frankly, guys, I'm a caregiver for my 94-year-old mom. And so some of these things are a result of my own experience in developing them. So there's lots of different things that I've been doing. Obviously, from a media standpoint, I went to, and again, training and education for boomers is essential, or people marketing in any industry is essential. I really invested a lot in myself a couple of years ago. I went to conferences on how to gain corporate sponsorship. I went to conferences on how to gain media coverage. I went to something called the National Publicity Summit, where for 3 days in New York, you speed date the media. And it really helps you hone your pitch.
Oh, yeah.
And when I came back from that, I had a one sheet, that basically said, here's who I am, here's what I speak about. And while I had been on the Charlotte Today program once, 2 or 3 years ago, I went to them with a new set of ideas. And of course, now the topic's emerging too, because it won't go away. When you find out caregiving statistics now also include millennials, 25% of family caregivers are millennials. And that's, how much of your workforce, 10 million strong, that this is good TV and it's educational TV. So again, I kind of pick and choose when I want to go on. I've been doing monthly, but sometimes I get burnt out because there's it's a volunteer thing, but it's more of a branding thing. But again, I treat it as a speaking engagement. So there's research, there's rehearsal, and it's about perfecting kind of the pitch. And that's, I guess, another good lesson to learn is that if you're going to go out and speak or be a media expert on TV, you just can't wing it. The best people who do it look like they're totally winging it, but they have it so ingrained in their head and in their emotion and in their presence that it kind of is out there. So I don't know if I directly answered that question, but there's a lot of moving parts for me. Yeah. Products are becoming part of it.
Yeah. No, well, and I was going to say, hey, listeners, have you noticed that Anthony looks completely comfortable in front of a camera? And it's because he's done this somewhere between 150 and 1,500 times. So it's about practice, and it's about the, kind of the slight edge concept. If you heard Anthony mention that he is sort of sickly consistent, well, consistency over time, whether it's your diet and workout or whether there's a divergence that happens where you suddenly do break away over time from your competition. So that's a beautiful small business lesson. about continuing to focus on branding and making that a part of your day. So, Anthony, with that in mind, and you did mention that you are evolving and rebranding because of how you're being seen as needed in your industry. So with the aging experience or something in your past, can you give us a success story about your company's service or product in a way that, leave names out, but tell us how you've changed somebody's life?
Well, I'll do it on two areas. And so I already told you about the first one, which is my involvement in patient experience and authoring an article that helped hopefully, change the face of healthcare somewhat. So that's pretty profound. But equally profound is something I use in one of my keynotes. It's a true story. I call it the story of Esther. And when I first came to the Carolinas and launched my consulting business, I was also still doing a lot of singing and performing as my consulting ramped up. And I went to an assisted living place in Hickory, North Carolina. I met Esther. And, I have a different program every month. And sometimes I'm observing obvious things that happen during the year, like, Memorial Day, you might do patriotic songs or songs about vets or whatever. But in November, I'll do Pennies from Heaven. And they'll say, well, why are you doing that? It's because it's National Accountants Day, don't you know? And so Esther would listen to my programs and she would make faces, and she became my designated heckler, essentially. And over time, we became really good friends. And one day I was going to the place to sing, and the activity director called me and said, can you go visit Esther in the hospital when you're done? And I said, sure. I didn't think much of it at the time. And after we were done singing, I went over, and the activity director went with me. And she goes, oh, by the way, Esther died and was revived a few days ago, and she's in the critical care unit. And I'm like, and she wants me, why? And essentially what she wanted me to do was to sing to her. And when I got there, her daughter was there, and Esther was flirting with me, and her daughter was getting embarrassed. Mom, he's a married man, for God's sakes, da-da-da. And we were having a grand old time. And she wanted me to sing, but she wanted a specific song. It's a spiritual song, Because He Lives. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow. Beautiful song. One problem, I didn't know it. As I told Esther, I said, I sing for my contemporaries. My repertoire today is anything from Frank Sinatra to Bruno Mars and Train. But, I grew up, and it's Frank Sinatra's son's birthday this year, so I grew up in a household that played these standards, and I do the Great American Songbook by and large in these places. I said, spiritual and gospel singers are a dime a dozen here in North Carolina. You certainly don't need me to come down here. I'm more of a cliche in up north, another Italian singer from South Philadelphia, as opposed to being more of a novelty in the Carolinas. I said, I don't know that song. She said, that's the song I want. So we went back and forth. I sung Unforgettable by Nat King Cole. I said, well, I'm going to learn this song for you. And I did. And I learned the song, and I put it on a CD, and I sent it to her. And by then she was out of the hospital, and she was back in assisted living. She knew it was for me even before she opened it. And I kind of left it at that, made someone happy and did some good. But then I got a call from the activity director saying, Esther's in hospice. And then a few weeks later, Esther passed. And now, I don't make it a habit of going to the funerals of residents who I happen to know. But for Esther, I went. And something was drawing me to want to go. And I was available that day. And so I went. So sure enough, when I get there, the song that's on the main song they're going to sing, of course, Because He Lives. But when I get there, the daughter comes up to me, and she started crying. And she had not cried up until that point. And she told me that, and others told me that. And so, of course, I'm now taken aback because I have no idea why she's crying after she sees me walk in. And what happened is that on the last day of Esther's life, they played my CD with the one song, 3.5 minutes long, of Because He Lives. And they played it over and over and over again until the daughter knelt down next to her mother and sang with me into her mother's ear and told her mother to let go. And Esther died that day. And so I don't know what price you put on that. Because as many times as I've wanted to run away from this whole mission of aging and healthcare, especially when there's not a monetization piece to it, yeah. I go back to Esther and other stories like Esther, though Esther's the most profound. And I say, something put me in that position to be able to help somebody transition from this life to maybe something bigger or whatever's next. I don't know how many people have those life-changing moments. So when you talk about success stories, that might not be a financial success, but that's almost a lifetime achievement success.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you could follow that. That was awesome.
Thank you.
So moving. And wow. Well, I certainly appreciate you sharing that with us. That's just a great story about the meaning behind, why we do what we do. And, the bigger change that we're affecting, in individual lives, from a small business perspective and families, and even up to including the communities that we serve. And wow, it's going to take me a few minutes to recover from that. So let's move on here before we all break down into tears. What's on the horizon for your company? New products, services?
Yep.
Talked about your new company. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. And again, I kind of synthesized. There's patient experience experts out there. There's resident, experience in nursing homes. And I said, I'm going to look at the aging experience. And then it's kind of interesting when you can't appreciate it now, but when my website launches, people will appreciate it. I found originally I was going to say, the aging experience. So I'll get a picture of a woman, for example, who's aging, and I'll put that as she ages and talk about, how different stages in life we have to address it. And then I found this great picture of essentially for a lack of description, it's a granny rock band, but it's the same woman. So it's all photoshopped. And she's playing guitar and bass and keyboards. And I'm saying, this is my image.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And then I was stewing over taglines for, days and over months. And I just came down to Nike has just do it. And I said, for the aging experience, just rock it.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
So that was just a moment of inspiration. So with that, it's a conglomeration of 3 separate websites I had. Consulting website, a speaking website, and a blog that talked about these educated aging issues. So that's on the horizon. That's going to launch, and I'm really been patient, and that's another lesson. I've really been patient about launching. In the past, I've launched websites, boom, boom, get it up. This one, it's been painstaking, but I am bound and determined to launch it the right way. I'm bound and determined to get industry stories out there at the same simultaneous time that it launches, and I'm going to do a blitz. And in that respect, from my consulting side, what I'm looking at and starting to present on is this idea of dementia friendly as a strategic business initiative for hospitals and health providers. And I'm suggesting they look at it in 3 areas. The first is when you're talking about patient experience in general, they first talk about employee experience. Well, what if you address the employee experience from the lens of the family caregiver? That 6 out of 10 of your workers are in a caregiving situation. But yet if they identify themselves as such, a lot of times, like we do with the dementia and Alzheimer's patient, we stigmatize them and we put them in a corner. And a lot of times it's a career-ending thing for people. And so how do you address and in turn improve the employee experience? By looking at it through the lens of dementia friendly. Same thing with practices and hospitals. How do you assess them for becoming dementia friendly? Either from an attitudinal basis and cultural to the environment. And then finally, how do you look at leading dementia-friendly initiatives in your communities? You have the resources to do it, and what a key marketing strategy that can be and a branding strategy. That's kind of my consulting head. On the product side, I told you about the custom concerts, told you about the 30-day caregiver program. I am trying to launch, and again, it's a voluntary thing, and it's modeled on something called the Giving Voice Chorus, and it's a chorus of people, all who have dementia or Alzheimer's, and it's a choral group. And so I'm trying to find a music director to kind of lead that. So that's kind of on the horizon. I also uncovered something from in the UK. It's called Purple Angel Music, and it's really fascinating. And what they've done, one of the gentlemen involved has early onset dementia, and he is actually an advisor to the Prime Minister. And what they've done is they put iPads together full of song lists, sort of like Music in Memory does here in this country, but they've programmed 24 to 48 blocks of time, hour blocks of time, even to the point of having silence. And so a family caregiver goes in and kind of presses the on button, and a person who has dementia has this 24-hour programming. But what's unique is they use song to make points. So they might use a Dolly Parton song, Jolene or something, and during the instrumental part, they will slip in messages about, did you remember to lock your door, or to have your tea, or stay well nourished, or all these kind of messages about how to live with a disease and live a quality life. They then re-record the song and leave the lyrics, the original lyrics out, and put a whole new set of lyrics, all geared toward helping people, do something to better their lives. Like I might say, fly me to the moon, don't forget to drink your tea, or something, that kind of thing. And so I already have 200 songs recorded or more, and I already have a version of them with my vocals out. I use them in my performances. And so it's not a stretch for me to be able to just sit down on my recliner at night and sketch out lyrics for any and all these. The big thing with that is securing and figuring out how to secure the performing rights to do this stuff. So that's kind of on the horizon as well.
Wow. So sit still much?
Yeah.
Wow, you got a lot going on, but I appreciate you're always forward thinking, and I've known that as I've known you for years. So being proactive and staying on top of your industry, kudos to you in all those regards. And you've already intertwined at some level our next, last two questions. But we know and believe, and I know you do too, that a lot of your brand has to do with making good connections with your community. And one of the best ways that we speak about doing that is in giving back and philanthropy, and then, sponsoring things you believe in, because boomers look to align their ethics and morals with the businesses that they choose to work with, as that stuff becomes more important in the second half of life. So what are you doing to pay it forward and give back in your own community, Anthony?
Yeah, well, cause marketing certainly is something I talk about in my marketing presentations as well. So, and up until a couple of years ago, I'm a guy who, basically still do get on planes a lot. And I know that as far as we can tell, this is where we're going to live the rest of our life, in this community. And so I tried to put down some roots in terms of things I got involved with. So about a year or so ago, I got involved in Rotary. So certainly there's all kind of giving back things that go with that. But because of my Rotary affiliation, I am on the board of something called the Lake Norman Family Health Clinic. Now, this is a clinic that provides free health care to the uninsured. And so I just joined the board, being a voice of health care. Obviously, I'm a good addition to inform that maybe they don't have on the board. And it's not local, but my national affiliation with the Dementia Action Alliance, I think, has local implications, because I also am part of, it's called Huntersville Cares, and it's the dementia-friendly program for my town. And so I am connecting those people to larger national figures and best practices, and the whole Dementia-Friendly America movement that was launched with the White House Conference on Aging. So it's an evolving thing, and I do go out. For example, our Huntersville Cares had 2 memory cafes this month, and I'm volunteering my time and singing my holiday Christmas program at that. So it's and I give myself away at auctions, so people buy me for the evening, and I'll go do a gig at their place, whatever.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Good thing Esther didn't buy you. I don't know what she would have done with you, according to
My wife would have had to come out and find me.
Oh, that's great. Well, listen, Anthony, we're getting a little tight on time here.
Yep.
But I want to make sure we hit one last question with you, and that is, what piece of advice, what nugget of wisdom would you give to someone wanting to start or grow their business right now that's serving boomers, families, and caregivers?
Yeah, well, we've talked about a lot of these. So I think, and you probably talk about it on every show, you need a unique niche or niche. And I've explained kind of how I've done it. And so you just need time to think. People do need time to back off and think, because they're always doing. So, meditation and thinking and reading books and all these things are sources of inspiration. I have Think and Grow Rich on my bedstand that I'm planning to read for the second or third time. I'm not sure. The other point when I saw these questions was, it came to mind, was catch people early, because aging is not just for the old. Mm-hmm. Aging is about reaching people when they're young. If millennials are starting to be caregivers, then millennials can also see the implications for their own aging. And so to make preparations, whether it's long-term care insurance or having an advance directive or whatever it might be. So I think if you have a business that catches people early in these life stages, it's going to be important. And this is particular maybe to healthcare, but the big gap right now where things fall off the cliff and it results in people being readmitted to the hospitals or poor health outcomes, and it's a societal issue, is in the transitions of care, the discharge planning, and all these types of things. So if you have a business that fits in the niches, geriatric care managers, patient advocates, all these cottage industries are starting to grow. And again, it's a niche, but if you can find that niche early and invent something that's not there, senior transportation's big. Obviously, Uber's already trying to figure that one out, and they're not going to do it alone. So there's all kind of technology companies springing to fill the gaps. So unique niche, catch people early, and pay attention to those gaps in the transitions.
You know, one thing I want to point out with the catching people earlier, it's something that we've talked to, our business owners that we work with a bunch, is that there's a lot going on. When you develop this platform at a local level and you get out there as the authority and the expert, like you said, these caregivers that are working with these older people and their families or what have you, that's one thing, but you're also building future business by doing those things, by getting to them early, by helping them when they have someone in their family that they're working with. You're not only building those referrals that are going to come in, but you're building your customers for the future.
Yeah, and it's classic kind of word of mouth marketing is that give something to get something. And hospitals are just now going into the home and assessing it from a post-surgical experience standpoint. So somebody comes out of the hospital, is this home safe? Can they rehab here? Is it all going to work? But they're doing it from a selfish motivation standpoint. They're doing it because if people go back into the hospital within 30 days for certain conditions, they're going to get penalized. They should have been doing it well before that. And what they should be doing now is assessing homes for aging in place, because I contend really that it's all going to move out of the institutional setting. And I think the value of the assisted living in the formal settings, I think it's more of the social aspect than anything else, because all the rest can come to you. But if you don't have the socialization piece, you don't have it. So if you can assess a home from an aging experience standpoint and do it for free now, who you're going to think of when you need care later? It's classic,
absolutely.
What you just said.
Absolutely.
And I've had people fly down from Anchorage, Alaska to say, hey, my mom can't hear me because I'm the daughter, right? And so can you meet us in Seattle and sit at the table and be the third party, who is the stranger, which makes you the expert, and yada yada. Well, okay, I'm going to take care of mom first, and that might not pay me, but guess what? They're going to think about when they then create or maybe buy their last home at 48 years old.
Yeah.
If they think, we're probably not going to move again. Oh, wow, we should probably think about aging in place. Oh, guess who we thought of that's still in business? Aaron.
Right.
That's all long, big vision. So, hey, Anthony, if we do this again with you, promise me that we'll film it in your studio with all those beautiful guitars on the wall.
We can do that.
All right, fair enough.
There too, but I
may have you sing the extra on the way out here in a second. But thank you so much for being with us today, and just sharing your story with the Booming Your Bottom Line listeners across the globe, and your insight and advice. And you just come at it with so many different angles. And I knew we were going to love having you on. I didn't know you were going to make me cry, but that's okay. That's part of this whole process and the cause behind why we're putting in the hours that we're putting in. So thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. So if people need a good speaker who can make them cry and laugh at the same time, I'm the guy.
There you are. Yep. So how do you get a hold of you before we wrap it up? Why don't you go ahead and throw out some phone numbers and websites?
Sure. Well, the news website is called theagingexperience.com. Right now it redirects to my consulting site, but that's the one I want people to use, theagingexperience.com. And you could contact me at AC, which is my initials, Anthony Cirillo, AC at theagingexperience.com. And the phone is 704-992-6005. I'm all over social media, but the Twitter handle is at Anthony Cirillo. Pretty simple.
Right on. Well, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the BYBL Owners Chat and are leaving a little more inspired today. That was fantastic. Thank you again, Anthony, for being here, and thanks to everyone for listening. Please share this episode with your friends, peers, and family on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Until next time, be well, be bold, and boom your bottom line.